Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from in the world. My name is Amy Carr. I'm the Vice President of Recruiting at Worldwide Health Staff Solutions. And today we are joined by a very special guest, Kristen Dahl. Kristen is a member of the Medical Solutions Public Relations team. Medical Solutions is our parent company here at Worldwide Health Staff Solutions. And Kristen is a Nebraska expert. So we are very excited to hear from her today. While we are live, please feel free to put your questions in the comments. We would love to answer any live questions that you have. Any questions about Nebraska, what it's like to live in Nebraska, why you would want to live in Nebraska, or any specific questions, we will do our very best to answer. And we'd also love to hear where you are watching from today. So in the comments, please be sure to drop the country that you're watching from. Kristen, thank you so much for being with us. We really, really appreciate it. And I will turn it over to you to learn about you and more about Nebraska.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Amy. Thanks for that great introduction. So hello to everyone who's watching. As Amy had mentioned, my name is Kristen Dahl, and I'm very happy to be your presenter today. I'm here to talk to you about the wonderful state of Nebraska. And I was actually really excited when I was asked to present because I was born and raised in Nebraska. So it's really all I know. As Amy mentioned, I'm kind of an expert. I'm not an expert on a lot of things, but I do know a lot about the state of Nebraska. So, if you aren't familiar with Nebraska, it's located in the middle of the United States. So, we are in the region considered the Midwest. We are a major player in the United States when it comes to corn and beef production. And we're also known for our college football. So, if you choose to visit or work in our state, you'll probably hear about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I'm a Nebraska Cornhusker through and through. And in case you were wondering, that name comes from the fact that when you do visit Nebraska, especially outside of some of the cities and metro areas, you'll see quite a bit of corn. So our mascot is the Cornhuskers. So I grew up in a small town in the middle of the state of Nebraska, which was made up of just about 350 people. So very close knit. It was a farming community, primarily farming corn. And we also had some ranchers who raised cattle. We had a very close knit town where everyone knew their neighbors. It was safe and supportive. And overall, just a really great place to grow up. But when I graduated from high school, I was looking for a change. So I moved to Lincoln, which is the state capital of Nebraska, to attend college. That was an enormous change for me. I literally went from a town of 350 people to a city of close to 300,000 people. So quite a bit of a difference. Since graduating from college, I've lived in 5 different communities at various sizes across the state. And right now, I live in a mid-sized community with about 26,000 people. So I find that that's really a nice mix of city offerings with a small town feel. The reason why I'm telling you all of this is because I really want to stress how diverse Nebraska can be. There's a great variety of places you can choose from to call home. There are a lot of cities and mid-sized communities, but there are also a lot of small farming communities that you can look at as well. A little bit more about me before we move on to the next slide. I'm married with 2 kids. My daughter Nora is 5 and my son Brady is 2. And in my free time, I enjoy gardening, cooking, going to concerts, and spending time with my family. So we can advance to the next slide, please. A little bit more about Nebraska. If you look at a map of the United States, you'll notice that Nebraska is pretty big. It's a pretty big state. It's actually 430 miles or about 690 kilometers wide. So just to give a little bit of a comparison, I did a little bit of research last night. It's more than 2 times bigger than the whole country of Ireland. So a lot of space to cover. For example, I also looked this up. It takes about 7.5 hours to drive from one end of the state to the other end from east to west. But one thing that's really cool about Nebraska is despite the actual size of the state, it has this special way of just feeling really cozy and connected. So if you spend enough time here, you'll start to notice connections in places that you go. So I visit a lot of little communities just in my free time on my weekends and nights and evenings and such. And I can usually find someone who either knows someone I know or who's related to someone I know. So I feel like that's kind of a unique thing about Nebraska. It just kind of makes you feel welcome and like you belong. Another really neat thing about Nebraska is it has a wonderful variety in our towns, and pretty much everyone takes pride in where they live in. So I can't speak for everyone out there, all of the Nebraskans, but I know I'm very proud to be a Nebraskan. Another cool thing is, like I had mentioned before, there's both the cities, kind of the urban atmosphere, but there's also kind of that quaint, rural kind of offerings as well. So for those of you who are looking for like the vibrancy of a big urban area, Omaha and Lincoln have a lot to offer. I've spent a lot of time in each city and experienced everything from concerts and sporting events to great places to eat, culture, there's art, music, and so much more. But on the other side, as I had mentioned, if you're looking for a quieter, slower pace of life, there are plenty of mid-sized and smaller communities that provide that quaint, family-friendly environment. And just to expand on that a little bit, for those who are family centered, Nebraska has great schools and a wide range of enriching activities for those kiddos. I personally couldn't think of a better place to raise my family. Just to kind of give you an example, this summer alone, we went to a zoo, a children's museum. My husband and I went to a ton of concerts, the water park, and so many more of those fun activities without even leaving the state of Nebraska. So there's really a lot going on. To take a little closer look at some of the pictures that you see kind of on this slide, in the upper right, my son is checking out a tiger at the Henry Dorley Zoo in Omaha. Below that, we were at an outdoor concert with some of our friends. And after that, we went out for some drinks at a bar that was in Omaha as well. And you can also see there's hiking. There's a picture of me hiking with my daughter when she was younger, and a photo of my family and I enjoying a Cornhusker football game. We also like to spend time at the beach. And the photo that you can see kind of up in that upper left-hand corner was at a beach in a mid-sized community kind of out in western Nebraska called North Platte. So another thing I really cherish about Nebraska is that my kids are in daycare centers that are less than 2 blocks from our house. And the class sizes are pretty small. So I always feel good knowing that they feel comfortable when they're not at home. For those of you who are younger and maybe haven't started the family yet, there are opportunities for you to explore and grow, plenty of outdoor things, a variety of lakes and rivers. It really is a great spot for all ages and every stage of life. There's a wide variety of things to do and see. So if you want to advance to the next slide, please. So for more of the nitty gritty details, this slide's kind of great, kind of a fact sheet about Nebraska. You'll see that sign in the first picture on the left. So when you enter the state by highway, we have signs all over that boast the good life. And that's really in a nutshell what it's like to live in Nebraska. People here are hardworking, friendly, and overall welcoming. I visited some of the bigger cities in the United States. I've been to New York City, Chicago, Dallas, Denver, some of the bigger metro areas. In Nebraska, in comparison to those, is definitely a slower pace. People just don't seem like they're in such a hurry. They'll stop and say hi to you when you walk down the street or wave if you pass them in a car. Another element about Nebraska is that it has 4 seasons of weather, take it or leave it. So if you decide to come here, you'll want a full closet of various clothing. Throughout the year, I need shorts, I need t-shirts, but I also want to make sure that I have some heavy pants, warm jackets, coats, hats, and gloves in the wintertime. I've never really been a fan of cold weather, so winter is kind of my least favorite season. But I do have to admit, there's nothing like experiencing a white Christmas when there's snow falling outside your window. You can curl up with a nice cup of coffee and a blanket when you're nice and warm inside and it's 15 degrees outside. My kids also like building snowmen and having snowball fights when it gets cold. So even though I'm not a huge fan of winter, I do admit there are some perks for when it gets kind of cold outside. It kind of just seems a little bit more cozy and warm when you are inside. The summers in Nebraska are my favorite. You can see anything from 65 to 90-degree weather. My kids love spending time outdoors. We always have either a sprinkler going in the backyard or we'll pull out a baby pool, water balloons, whatever you name it. It's also great for gardening. I do always keep a garden in the summer. And there are several lakes and rivers to take advantage of. So most summers we'll find a lake with a nice beach and try to hang out for a weekend. We bring our lunches and spend some time by the water. It's really a good time. There's also something I wanted to tell you about in Nebraska. It's called tubing. And people actually float down rivers on inner tubes, and they'll soak up the sun and enjoy some time with their friends and family. So it seems a little bit odd when you first hear about it, but it's actually really fun and a nice way to decompress after a week of hard work. So there's lots of options for those rivers to go tubing on if that's something that you'd be interested in checking out. The fall and the spring are usually mild, and you can witness all the colors from the bright, colorful flowers in the spring to the leaves changing from green to those beautiful fall colors in the fall. One thing I did want to mention is that we do see rain and thunderstorms throughout the spring and summer, but they usually pass pretty quickly. So if you are thinking of moving here and you don't have experience with severe weather, it would be a good idea to maybe look up some tips and tricks for when that happens, just so you're kind of prepared. I've lived here my whole life, so I'm no stranger to the weather, but it would take some getting used to for anyone who isn't used to thunderstorms or high winds. We do also see the occasional tornado. So another thing to keep in mind when it comes to winter would be getting around in the snow. If you don't know how to drive in the snow, like I said, Nebraska nice. I'm sure there'd be somebody who would teach you and help you learn. But that is something that most Nebraskans need to know how to do, is to get around kind of in that winter weather as well. Moving on the slide, our largest cities are Omaha, Lincoln, and Bellevue, and they're all pretty close together. So it would be easy to hop from one to the other if you'd like to explore. And as I mentioned before, Omaha and Lincoln really have a lot to do in terms of attractions. You'll find great places to eat, entertainment, nightlife, like bars and clubs, but also quite a bit of cultural opportunities as well. There's art galleries, theaters, and museums to check out if that's something that you're interested in. Nebraska is known for many things, including Chimney Rock in western Nebraska, which is perfect for anyone who likes the outdoors. And it's also home to one of the best zoos in the United States, the Henry Dorley Zoo in Omaha. It's wonderful. We went there this summer. It's huge. It has an indoor desert, rainforest, aquarium. You walk through kind of this big tunnel, and you can see the sharks and the fish swimming up over your head. It's really neat. I definitely recommend checking that out. And you can literally spend a day there and not see everything. So you could go multiple times and kind of experience it in different ways. As I mentioned before, we're also really into our college sports. Our football team is celebrated. And so even if you aren't into American football or interested in that, a Cornhusker football game is really one of the best experiences you'll get if you come here. The population of Lincoln increases because a lot of the people who live in kind of the smaller and mid-sized communities around Omaha, or around Lincoln, will drive into Lincoln on game day, and the population just almost doubles. There's so many people. They're all dressed in red. They're all cheering for the same team. It's really an electric kind of environment. So definitely, if you come visit Nebraska, please, you won't regret it. Go to a Cornhusker football game. Next slide, please. Here are some quick stats about life in Nebraska. Our population is just under 2 million. The median age is 36, and the median home price is around $200,000. And if you're not interested in buying a home, there's also plenty of rental opportunities in the cities and some of the mid-sized communities. And listed on the slide here is 8 reasons to live in Nebraska. And I can attest to most of these. So Nebraska is known for its affordable cost of living compared to many other states, which is one of the reasons why it's such a great place to raise a family. Housing is one of the biggest expenses for most families. And it tends to be more affordable here, especially in smaller towns in mid-sized communities. But even in larger cities like Omaha and Lincoln, housing prices are generally lower than the national average. As I've alluded to before, Nebraska is also known for its friendly and welcoming communities where people take pride in helping their neighbors and fostering a strong sense of connection. Nebraskans are known for their Midwestern hospitality. I'd mentioned that before. We're overall helpful and we're very welcoming people. We also have excellent public and private schools and focus on academic achievement and well-rounded development for our kids. The state is known for its dedication to education, and both public and private schools provide families with high-quality options. Nebraska also has relatively low crime rates, so you could feel safer if you choose Nebraska. It's a safe place to live and raise a family. Our tight-knit communities, strong law enforcement presence, and commitment to public safety will help you feel safe. As far as natural beauty goes and outdoor activities, you can find hiking, biking, camping, fishing. There are numerous state parks and recreation areas. Nebraska's outdoor options make it a great place for adventure or relaxation. And we're also known for our strong and stable economy, which is supported by a diverse mix of industries. As I mentioned, agriculture plays a significant role, but our economy goes beyond farming. Many of our communities are very successful in manufacturing, transportation, insurance, and of course, healthcare. I've mentioned a bit already, but if you are interested in learning more about some of our cultural attractions and tourist locations, I'd recommend researching Omaha's College World Series. We host the World Series, which is baseball. The Nebraska State Fair, the Old Market in Omaha is a great place to shop or go out to eat. And Nebraska is actually home to the world's largest train yard, Bailey Yard in North Platte. So that's fun, especially for the kiddos if they're into trains. And then we also have the Archway Monument, which is a very unique kind of tourist attraction. And that's located in Kearney, Nebraska, kind of in the center of the state. The last bullet is 4 distinct seasons. I feel like I kind of covered that already, but just being able to experience all 4 seasons is something you won't see in all states if you visit the United States. So it's definitely kind of a unique thing for Nebraska. You can head on to the next slide, please. So our current client that we have in Nebraska is Common Spirit Health. Common Spirit is a nonprofit Catholic health system dedicated to advancing health for all people. Their core values are compassion, inclusion, integrity, excellence, and collaboration. Worldwide Health Staff Solutions has actually hired for 6 different Common Spirit locations in Nebraska this year, and they're hiring for a range of specialties. So that's anything from medical, surgical, cardiac, ICU, acute rehab, and so much more. And they offer strong employee benefits packages with compensation, paid time off, insurance, and retirement offerings, plus additional relocation and sign-on incentives. As far as locations go, we're hiring for positions in bigger cities like Omaha and Lincoln, which I've mentioned quite a bit in this presentation, as well as mid-sized communities like Kearney and Grand Island. Those are located in the middle of the state, and even some smaller options like Schuyler and Plainview. Now, I've spent a time in most of those communities and again can attest that there's really something for everyone. So I'd encourage you to maybe check out a little bit more about each community, what they have to offer. There's definitely a variety of activities. They're each unique. If you choose one, you could always visit another one, close enough for a drive if you're interested in exploring the state of Nebraska. Next slide. So if you do decide to come here, these are the types of licensure requirements and English language exams that you would need. Amy knows a lot more about this, but I'll just say some quick bullet points. Nebraska doesn't require a social security number to start your application. So that's important because you can begin that process early. For credentials evaluation, Nebraska accepts from any of the 3 listed providers that you'll see on your screen. And for the English exam, you will want to keep in mind they only accept active results. So I'll pause maybe for a little bit if Amy has anything to add for this slide, and if not, I'll move on.
Yeah, I think also, the timing for English exams are always important. And here at Worldwide, your case manager will help you with when the right time to do that is. But I think for those who are curious about what English exams Nebraska accepts, they accept the TOEFL, IELTS, TOEIC, MET, and PTE. So all of those are accepted by Nebraska.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the next slide. So the cost of living in Nebraska is very affordable. That was one of the highlights of the 8 reasons, the 8 great reasons to come to Nebraska. In the Omaha area, you can expect housing to range from $880 to $1,000 a month, which is below the national average. Now that varies depending on the size of community you land in. But like I mentioned before, I've lived in smaller communities, mid-sized communities, and cities, and it's really pretty consistent across the board. There's that little variability, but from $880 to $1,000, I'd say is pretty accurate for any of the locations that you might find here in Nebraska. As for utilities and transportation, our costs are significantly lower than the national average, as you'll see on that slide. And I did want to mention about transportation. So in the United States and in Nebraska, driving is how most people get around. Some of the larger cities have public transportation, here in Nebraska. But even though they do have that public transportation, many people drive to and from work. So when it comes to getting from one city to another, when it comes to getting to work, you'll want to make sure that you kind of have that plan in place as to how you plan to get there. If you don't know how to drive yet, it might be something that you'd want to check out before you come to the United States. And then also when it comes to getting from one city to another, I kind of mentioned I do that on my weekends. There's a large interstate system that runs through the state, and it makes it really easy to navigate. So you'll want to keep all that in mind when considering Nebraska. Annual living expenses, you can expect those to be anywhere from 60 to 108,000, and that's again below the national average. The national average is about 121,000. So we get into some of those specifics on that chart on the right if you want to take a closer look at that. But overall, my family has really found that with a dual income, both my husband and I work full-time jobs. We can live comfortably and still have spending money for travel and fun activities in our free time due to the very affordability of the state of Nebraska. Which brings me to the next slide. There are a multitude of job opportunities for spouses and dependents. So if you're planning on coming over with others, there's definitely a lot of opportunities out there for your spouses as well. Anything from education to manufacturing, transportation, and agriculture. Depending on what their background is, Nebraska is full of opportunities. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what that looks like, I work for Medical Solutions, which is a travel nursing company. I work from home remotely from my community with our headquarters in a larger city. My husband works for a Catholic school as a communications director. My sister's a nurse, so she works at a hospital nearby here in the community that I live in. My brother-in-law works at a car dealership. My dad's in manufacturing. So there's really kind of a good variety to choose from when you get here. Next slide. Oh boy, that went fast. Okay, so before I wrap up, I do just want to reiterate, Nebraska is truly a great, great place to live. So I've been here my whole life and I don't feel like I'm missing much. The nice thing is we're really right in the middle of the country, so it's easy to take a quick road trip to another state if you want to explore other parts of the United States. But at the end of the day, I really do love the experiences I've had here, and I hope you choose to join me in the Cornhusker State and experience all that Nebraska has to offer. So, Amy, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen. And thanks to everybody who has joined us here. I see folks that have joined our live session today from Antigua, Kenya, Guyana, Ghana, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Nigeria, Philippines. So lots of countries represented. That's so exciting. And please continue to put your questions in the comments. We're going to start asking questions or answering questions that have come in. One thing I want to mention, I do see a comment. While we have been live, the visa bulletin for October 2024 has been released. So that has happened. More to come from Worldwide on the visa bulletin. Ron Hoppy himself will be doing a webinar next Wednesday at a similar time. So be on the lookout for that with what the October visa bulletin means for you and for anybody who's in process and hopes to begin their journey to the U.S. To a couple of questions that came in. One, are you familiar, Kristen, with Scottsbluff, Nebraska? Do you know? Have you ever been there?
I have been there. Yes, I have been there to visit. I haven't spent a lot of time there, but I did live in North Platte, which is near Scottsbluff in the vicinity.
Okay.
So I don't have
Somebody
a lot.
was asking about what it's like. What is it like? What do you think it might be like to live in Scottsbluff?
Yeah, so Scottsbluff is kind of on the western part of the state, but the community is a pretty good size. I think maybe mid-size community. So I'm sure that there's kind of the same offerings that you would find in like a North Platte, like I had mentioned. So when I lived in North Platte, There were quite a few restaurants. They had some big box stores like a Walmart if you need to go get your groceries or go shopping. It's a little further away from some of the metro areas in Omaha, but you could probably hop over to like a Colorado or Wyoming if you wanted to go to one of the cities to shop or go on a quick vacation. So again, my knowledge on Scottsbluff probably isn't as elaborate as some of the other cities, but it does have everything that Nebraska, as I just described before, the safe, the affordability, a lot of those perks that you'll find in some of the other areas too.
Probably all four seasons.
Yep.
Those sorts of things. Okay, great. Thank you. There's another question that came in about do we at Worldwide hire pharmacists and what are the requirements? And the answer is we do hire some pharmacists. The pharmacists normally come on an H-1B visa, work visa. It requires a 5-year pharmacy degree from an ACPE accredited college or university. And then it also requires the FPGEC certification. So those are the two really important pieces to that. You don't have to have a visa screen, but there is an English assessment that's required. And then also once you arrive in the U.S., there's a paid internship that precedes working as a full pharmacist. And I think most organizations that we hire pharmacists for require hospital experience. So if you're working for a food distributor or something that's outside of a hospital, like they require hospital experience. Another question that came in is about people moving out of Nebraska because of high taxes. I haven't heard that. But Kristen, have you heard about people moving out of Nebraska because of high taxes?
I have not heard that, but I'm assuming that may be applying to maybe more of the metro areas. I have I guess my brother lives in Bennington, which is a suburb of Omaha, and his property taxes are quite higher than they are for me, which is in a kind of a mid-sized community. So again, as I had mentioned, there is that variability depending on the size of the community that you end up selecting. But within Omaha, there are different metro areas and the taxes vary within the city of Omaha. So if you do land in Omaha, you could probably find a neighborhood or a suburb where the taxes are a little bit lower, if that's something that you would need.
Yeah, and I would say, thanks to the comment getting posted, the tax per capita in Nebraska. I think when I generally think of places with really high taxes, I think of other states.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
I would
yes.
say, I think part of the really, aside from the Nebraska nice and just how lovely everyone is in Nebraska, I think the cost of living is generally one of the very best things about living in Nebraska, and I think would be a really great place to start off your life in the U.S. Because compared, if you look at the salary that most of our nurses have been offered for Common Spirit compared to the cost of living, it's a great place to be able to save money
Mhm.
for all of the things that you want to start off having and getting, as you look forward to a house and more than one car and those sorts of things, that the
Yes.
cost of living really is a plus.
Yes, and as you had mentioned, really compared to some of the other states in the United States, if you're comparing, as you know, like I had mentioned, I born and raised in Nebraska. That's kind of all I know. So when I compare taxes, I compare taxes from Omaha to North Platte from the two communities within Nebraska. But if you compare those to the national taxes, it's much lower.
There's a couple of questions that have come in about requirements. So the positions that we are hiring for right now for Common Spirit are in acute care hospitals. The interviews require that you are working currently in bedside and that you have already taken and passed your NCLEX exam, and they are currently for RNs. We hope to have some additional positions in the future that maybe are outside of just nurse positions, but right now they are only RN positions. We don't have an NCLEX sponsorship program, but occasionally we do have some positions where employers will hire without bedside experience. However, Every single one of our employers do require that you return to the bedside during the immigration process. I think it's really important that as you think about migrating to the US and starting a new job and transitioning to practice in the US, that your nursing skills are as strong as they possibly can be. So as you transition in all the other pieces of your life, that you've got really strong nursing skills to fall back on. And so I think that's one of the things that our employers require. All right. I think that we have answered all of the questions that have come in. If you want to talk to a recruiter right now live to find out if the specialty or unit area that you are working in, we're hiring for, you can connect to recruiters right now live through chat. If you have a worldwide recruiter already, please reach out to them directly. They have your information and can absolutely help schedule an interview for you. And then if you have any other questions, please make sure that you reach out to us. If you haven't applied already, please go to our website directly and apply. We would love to connect you to a recruiter today. And then I think, as always, as we close out, please make sure to like us on Facebook for immigration updates like the Visa Bulletin, to learn about Ron Hoppy's webinar, for more information on the Visa Bulletin and what the priority dates mean to you. Follow us on Facebook and all of our other social media channels. And if you have a nurse friend or colleague or family member, please make sure to sign up and refer them through our referral program. You have a link that you can share both on your social media and to anyone that you know, and you can earn $250 per referral that has a petition filed with us. Kristen, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for sharing all of this really, really great information with us. We appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who participated and commented around the world. We had such great comments and participation. And I hope everybody has a wonderful evening or afternoon or morning, depending on where you are.